Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the SaaS Sessions podcast. We just crossed 100 episode and today we have a very special guest, Abby Heeman, on the show with us. With over 14 years of experience in content, Abby is a specialist in strategic positioning, product positioning, and value-driven messaging. She's currently working as the director of product marketing at GetResponse, who she has worked with them for about 10 years. Abby, is that correct? Yeah.
That's right.
And
That's right. I loved
nice.
it so much. I left and came back.
Nice, yeah. And just to before we get into like the topic of discussion, which is customer marketing, GetResponse, for those who don't know, is a comprehensive email marketing platform for small businesses and solopreneurs. Anyone who's just starting out, who want to engage with their audience, grow their audience, and eventually turn them into paid subscribers or paid customers, right? So that's what use GetResponse for. And yeah, like we'll get to know more about like a little bit about the product, more about customer marketing and how Abby and her team is doing customer marketing at GetResponse in the show. So yeah, before we get into that, Abby, why I gave a very short intro and about you, like why don't you elaborate more on that and tell us about yourself and how's your journey been in the SaaS ecosystem so far?
Sure. Yeah. Happy to. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I've been really dug into the SaaS world, like you mentioned, for this is horrifying how time flies, about 14 years now total, and really in particular in product marketing for the last 10 years, I would say, which is this really, nice emerging field that I think is really quite mature now. But it really all came from my experience starting on the front lines, let's say, of a lot of the intersection of what a lot of product marketers come into the field from, which is the, intersection of knowing the product and knowing your customer really well and actually being on a customer support team. So, answering phone calls, solving customer problems, as it relates to the tool, but also as it relates to their overall strategy and their business goals. You really like to have the opportunity to learn a lot, both about your tool, about the product you're supporting, and then your customers. And so this is kind of really became then really a happenstance, but thankfully really good timing to actually see how product marketing began to actually become this more formal function in a lot of SaaS organizations. And thankfully, with that intersections of product expertise, then customer problem, customer goal expertise, it really now comes into this really valuable central collaborative point in the organization to really help our customers be successful and help our, product and development teams get the insights they need about how to build products that solve problems. So it's been a great ride to really dig into that with GetResponse for a few years, worked for a really cool higher education startup as well, based out of the US, and then, missed the GetResponse ecosystem so much. I had to go
Came
back and
back.
keep solving problems with them. Yeah.
Nice. That's really interesting. Yeah, and totally like product marketing as a role has been evolved so much in the past few years, and it's really now the center point. As you said, right? You work with the sales team. You work in the intersection between like sales, customer success, your product team, engineering team, and obviously the marketing team, and you just have like to align your goals with like a lot of other people's goals and make things happen, right? That's a weird and a good position to be in, right? Like definitely a challenging one. And I've covered like a bunch of topics on how to align these goals with other goals of product marketing with other teams in like like a few previous episodes, and obviously great insights for anybody who's listening there as well. But yeah, great journey as well for you. And like talking about particularly like now customer marketing, right? Like I know it's been there for a long time, like, and when I say long, it's been like easily lot decades, right? Whether it was called customer marketing back then or not, maybe not formally, maybe informally, or but in some way you like, whether you are a B2B company, B2C company, whether you're PLG or sales led or any kind of led, you are engaging with your customers, right? You want them to talk about yourself, talk about your product to the world, right? That is essentially, in essence, what customer marketing means, right? But obviously, over the years, as more and more channel comes, like there are new ways to do that. There are new tactics to do that. And because like SaaS overload is so much, like you obviously want to stand out and be a signal in the noise kind of thing. So like it's been there for a long time, but would love to know your take on what is customer marketing according to you. And in today's world where everybody's there is a cutthroat competition on getting attention, why should any SaaS company who's just starting out, or maybe they're like little scaled as well, they should invest in, strategically invest in customer marketing, if they're not doing it already?
Yeah, it's a great question, and generally a great topic, and one I'm also super obsessed with, just from my background and really how I see, companies remain successful and remain, in business year after year, is the fact that you've got loyal customers who stay with you and repeat their purchases, and often will then expand actually their investment in your organization. That's really the only way you're going to be able to sustain a successful business. And so it doesn't ever make a lot of sense to me when it's, net new acquisition at all costs and only. You save all of your best content, all of your best resources, all of your best, investment into actually acquiring new customers. And then once they sign the dotted line, right, you kind of pass them over to, your customer success org and kind of wash your hands of it, right? And that just really is not a sustainable business model. I know we're all up against really aggressive targets, in particular if you're in kind of the early days of your startup, looking to acquire funding or, get your next round, and you have to show growth. You have to be able to show, that you're able to expand, your market footprint. But then if your bucket is so leaky and you don't have those folks actually staying with you, and you're not really doing a really deliberate, focused job, and not just, of course, delivering an exceptional product, which should be, table stakes for why that customer actually decided to purchase your product anyways. But then, how are you continuing to solve their problems, engage them, help be a part of their evolution and be a part of their success? I think really what customer marketing is just continuing to help solve customer problems and engage with them as it relates to, but expands outside of your product, right? How do you continue to solve their problems and be associated with their successes, and not just solve ticket requests as they come in, right? And just think that's sufficient, or have a your yearly renewal call and think that this is now customer marketing. I can get a quote for my sales team at my renewal that they can then put on the website, right? That's not really engagement. That's not really actually, courting your customers, let's say, because, marketing of what we're doing to acquire new customers, right, is to prove to new customers we can solve their problems, that we're the experts, that we can help you and we have what you need. But with our customers, that's where we can actually get all of the insights we need to help acquire more net new customers who are happy like them, but we can learn from them and learn, what do you need next? How can we actually expand this journey together? And so I think so much focused, of course, the KPIs and things we can monitor, in particular, if we're in a B2B kind of sales-led world, right? It's this expansion revenue. How can we actually get our customers to stay with us, but continue to increase their investment, our share of wallet with them, as we continue to develop our product suite? And that can't be done without knowing your customers, engaging with them, and being involved outside of just solving bug issues they've got with your product, but actually leaning in more about exactly what their problems are and how your product should continue to evolve, solving more complex problems. Yeah.
Totally. No, that is very true, as you said, right? It's not just like when you sell to a customer once and then be done with it. That's like obviously true. A lot of companies already know that, but obviously, like, there's also expansion. Like many B2 companies has multiple products or a suite of products, or maybe they just have 20 licenses and they can expand to 40 licenses. And like, the only way to unlock that is, continuing to market to your customers as well, and like, not leave them dormant, right? And not just leave them with customer success team. Like, you have to have like a marketing angle to that as well in some way. But yeah, and I'm guessing, not guessing, I'm very sure that you also have like a framework, like a customer marketing framework that you have built, obviously on many levels, because like as like, the analogy that I was talking before our call as well, right? You don't, when you go on a first date, like, you don't obviously ask the girl or the guy to marry you on a first date, right? Like, you gradually keep on like meeting, strengthen the relationship, and then you ask them to like marry you, right? So how do you, like, I'm with the customers, like using that analogy with your customers as well, when they become your customer, obviously they liked your product, that's why they bought it, but now they are going to use it, and your customer success team will continue have weekly calls or QBRs, and they'll continue to strengthen that relationship. And at some point, like, keep increasing that ask. Maybe it starts with like, adding a logo to our website. Maybe it will be like giving us a G2 review. It can be, then it can be like, hey, do a webinar with us or do a podcast with us. So it, like, yeah, you obviously knows that keeps on growing, right? And there's like an entire framework on how do you want to engage these customers as well. So like, can you talk more about like what is the framework that you like, and maybe you've tried and tested at GetResponse, like you have been at one company for a decade. So I'm sure like you know what it works and what doesn't work, and you have been something that you've been following for the past, let's say, 5+ years, right? So
Sure.
yeah, can you talk more about the framework that you're following?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll break it into kind of two portions because we've got the two, arms of our business. We've got our product led, I think, as we've mentioned
Hmm.
before, it's kind of, higher scale, lower touch. And then we have our sales led kind of upmarket arm where it's, higher touch, but lower scale, right? For the way that
Hmm.
we execute on this. And so to speak to the first piece
Hmm.
is we have a lot of really good data. And so at that point, it's really about we focus on our core activation points. So we always
Hmm.
segment and filter down, of course, by market, because we, would need to, address different customer markets, differently with different business examples. And then we break it into our two core activation metrics that we've identified for our product. And so those are the default that we have to then see that those have actually been established, meaning our
Hmm.
customer is appropriately activated and using the key success portions of our product to see the true value. Then we see a
Hmm.
couple of other, and this is all automatically filtered through our data tools that we've got. And then we can filter by a few other core, points about the success of the account, like how much their subscriber list is growing, what type of engagement they get with their messages, how long they've been. We want to see somebody at least, 3 months with us. And then by that, we can just start filtering through. And so we really want to make sure that we don't muddy the waters with any outreach, any asks until we actually see that our customers have actually gone through the, education, the activation, and then the early
Hmm.
signs of success that they need, which in all of that is getting its own form of communication. They're not left on their own.
Hmm.
We've got lots of enablement, lots of communication, lots of education. And that's the complete focus for at least 90 days to make sure that they actually see the value, get the impact that they're looking for. And then we go through our filtering. We
Hmm.
actually can see who we have some automated asks out. And so we've got automations built that can actually start making introductions to our product marketing manager
Hmm.
to let them know that we'd love to have a conversation, learn more about their business and how we can, support them further, those types of things. And so we have some automations built in that filter all of that and then go through a outreach process. And then we've got some, call scheduling tools in place as well
Hmm.
that can, round robin assigned to our product marketing team who can actually have a nice interview and conversation with a particular customer that meets all the criteria that we've identified for given markets. And then it
Nice.
starts indeed with the first is a conversation, right? Like we don't ask for anything except for a conversation first. And then during the conversation,
Hmm.
we start to be able to expand. Is this going to be a good fit for a formal case study overview that we can turn into a web page, and
Hmm.
publish across the site, or other activities that we would like for them to engage in, to be maybe a potential influencer, somebody who actually, promotes GetResponse and, gets referrals. There's quite a few things, but it really starts with a human conversation. I think, we've automated about as much as we can.
Yeah.
And at that point, we just want to talk to somebody, and we have the ability and scale to do that on our
Nice.
team.
Got it.
Yeah,
Interesting. And yeah, before we move on to the second part, right? Like talking about less scale and more complex, right? Just double clicking on the first section on the PLG side of the product for GetResponse, right? So obviously you're using what I feel like you're using like product signals, internally. Maybe you're using a tool like Mixpanel or Heap to identify those signals and identify the user behavior on how
right.
they're interacting with the product, and maybe you're just reaching out to somebody who has done the core action, right? Like of the first, after the first 7 days of sign up, right? And that's so very important, right? Like I think just the other day I was browsing on Twitter and I saw like Lyft in the US, which is like a ride hailing app, just similar to Uber for those who don't know. So they actually for some reason send a notification to give a rating to a driver when you are in the middle of a ride, right? Like you book an Uber or you book a Lyft, and then after like 5 minutes before your ride ends, like after 5 minutes after ride starts, you'll get a notification saying give a review for your driver. I mean, like how can you have not even completed the ride?
Sure.
So like why are you
Oh,
asking? Like that's such a bad experience, right? Like and I've seen many like products that I have used, like I've signed up on like on the product, and maybe I've not used in a few days, like I've not signed back and not done the core action in the first 4 or 5 days, and I still get a email saying that, hey, thank you for signing up, and maybe write a G2 review or like, you want to get on a call with us or sales team and all of that, right? Like if you want to upgrade, like I haven't even tried, like I have not even created
That's right.
anything, right?
That's right.
It's such a bad experience. And then and as an end user, like, as a maybe a customer or a future customer, right? Especially in the PLG world, like if they have just signed up on a freemium or a free trial, you have to give them the core value of the product with
Right.
as least hurdles as possible, right? As easy as possible, you want to give them the value. If you give them the value, like they obviously, then as you said, like the first is a very small ask is to connect with a not even a salesperson but a product marketing manager to
Right.
understand like how they're using, get to know more about them, start that relationship building process. So it's such a important like point here. That's where I wanted to like share this lift
Right.
example that I saw.
Sure.
And
Good example. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, that's a great example. Exactly. We don't want to, muddy the
Mm,
waters or distract them from what we
mm,
understand from tons of research and tons of analysis of what our customers are truly there to do, which is see their
mm,
subscriber lists grow and actually engage with their existing subscribers via their emails as a core starting point. And we want to
nice.
intervene when we see folks not actually, reaching those benchmarks. And that's a whole other pathway, right? We have,
Yeah.
or, getting folks on the right path, so to speak, to really see the success thereafter. But in terms of actually starting a, customer marketing relationship in terms of telling their story, amplifying their success so others can follow it, definitely we really make sure that we focus on them achieving, those core success points before we reach out. And then, we've got those types of things, traditional interviews, case studies, webinars, videos, all that stuff as well. And then we also have a very healthy referral program. A lot of
Nice.
folks use GetResponse get it paid for by simply referring other people to GetResponse, because that's also the kind of beauty, right? They're already using this tool
Mm,
to market. We're an email marketing tool that, you can publish landing pages and send newsletters, right? And you can easily,
mm,
include a GetResponse badge on it. A lot of people, of course, remove it, but a lot of people also don't, because they simply get their account paid for by
mm.
traffic that they're able to just simply generate from those logos or other means that they use to actually, refer the product. So that's another kind of small, it's not particularly small, but it's, kind of the nuanced way that customers do some marketing for us, right? Which is simply by including, powered by logos and things like that. But of course, there's
Totally.
a
Yeah,
perk for
all
them.
hail, yeah, all hail Intercom. I think they were the first ones to kind of do this in SaaS, particularly. As far as I could remember, if there is somebody before that, I don't know, but I believe like Intercom, when like chat applications were not
Yeah,
that cool, and we used to put it on their website,
yeah,
and you say it's like powered by Intercom, run on Intercom, and what is
yeah,
this? Like, what is this popping up on the website? So it was like a cool way to for them to generate
yeah,
like
exactly.
new
Yeah.
signups for sure. Yeah, great strategy. But yeah, like on to the second one, like I would love to know how you're engaging or what's your framework for engaging the customers on the other side, where the like scale is less, but or the volume is less, but
Sure,
the complexity or the touches required are very high, which is on the
sure,
to be sales led
for
particular side.
sure. It is. There's a lot of stakeholder management in this piece, right? There's a lot of, folks who are, associated, and it's very different in lots of organizations in terms of who quote unquote owns the account, right? And who owns
Hmm.
expansion revenue, who's still responsible, from the net new acquisition versus the like customer success angle. So it all varies, of course, by your organization's particular setup, but it is just a kind of masterclass in not getting bogged down in stakeholder management, making sure everybody's involved, but you don't let it become a huge blocker where you never actually get an ask out to to the customer. So that's one, the first really hurdle to come across. And then in particular, the data points are a bit different, right? The activation and value goals are quite a bit different. That they have their core from our kind of PLG model in terms of like how people get value from the product, but then in terms of the way we report on that value, like the actual revenue gains associated with the email marketing channel, requires also more finesse in actually working with the customer for them to feel comfortable attributing that revenue growth
Hmm.
with your organization, right? So it's quite
Hmm.
it's just kind of a really good practice for all of us to internally manage our stakeholders, and then externally how you actually really help to elevate your customers' success and their business success, and how can you actually negotiate it so they will be willing to associate that success with your organization publicly. That's not easy to
Hmm.
do, right? We know those of us in in, larger organizations that are more public, the stakes are higher than when you're speaking with a solopreneur who employs themselves and sees success from using your tool and is happy to say it. When you represent an organization, it's a much bigger ask to put your face and name specifically publicly to some particular business metric publicly as well. So there's a lot that needs to go into your approach. That's where I would, where we spend most of the time is strategizing with our account team on what is the story here and how can we back that up before we make the pitch. So definitely the B2B side of things, we of course make sure that the implementation has gone well. So, and we still don't reach out, right? We know when all new customers are signed, amazing. We're all watching when we see a new flashy logo that we're pumped about, but we leave them alone until the implementation is done. Are they implemented successfully? We keep their points of contact as low as possible. This is difficult because everybody's chomping at the bit to get the logo on the website, like you said, and to get the on LinkedIn. But it gets hairy whenever then you loop in your marketing team and you've already, the new salesperson has already passed it on to the customer experience manager, but you've now got probably 3 or 4 internal stakeholders communicating with one point of contact for your customer. And that's just overwhelming. And so I try to emphasize patience in terms of our sales team and being aware that we're not going to get that logo up tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. Let's just keep managing these goals, and you can get the downstream positive impact of, the public proof that we've signed this organization in the deals that you're going to be closing in a month or 2. And not the deals you're working right now. So it's really the internal management of time and letting folks invest in the long-term value that we're going to get by ensuring this customer has an amazing experience. So let them get implemented successfully. Let them feel comfortable that that's our priority and that's what we care about the most. Then once they're passed from implementation to usage, we can start then having more regular check-ins with the customer experience manager and, for example, using the, data tool that you have, monitoring their performance, and then aligning on the next strategic point to loop in somebody for marketing.
Makes sense. Though, no, those are really good insights, and everything you said, like, preach to all of that. We used to follow the same kind of process at my previous org as well. And we used to, as you said, like as marketers, we used to keep a track on, hey, what's that logo in the pipeline? We want them on our website as soon as possible, even before they convert, right? We are excited because they're in the pipeline, they're going to convert in a month, and we're going to have a good logo on maybe a landing page that we can use on our, in our ads, in our website, and everywhere, right? That is so true, right? So great insights. And something I want to touch upon, like on the sales side, right? Like sales-led side, I feel like what you described as customer marketing is more, one-to-one, where like there are some stakeholders in your company, or maybe one stakeholder who from the customer marketing team on your side, and obviously like one customer, PO's point of contact from their customer side, right? And whereas like in the PLG-led approach, where you get like 3,000 or 5,000 signups in a month, obviously you cannot have like a one-on-one relationship with them. But that's more like a one-to-many approach, right? So something I read on the internet a few months back was like, there was one company who had like a remote team, and they were like a PLG company. I'm trying to recollect what's the name of, like, what company was that, but yeah, it was a PLG company. And how they used to engage with their customers is they used to segment them all based on the country that they belong to. And how they built that one-to-many relationship was, instead of sending the email from a company's name, like GetResponse, like newsletter, maybe you're sending a newsletter, or the product nudges based on usage, or the first email that goes out, or just your regular email flow, right, that you're sending. Instead of sending it from a company's name, they used to send, let's say if you're based in India, they used to use some Indian name in that email, that, hey, I'm getting an email from an Indian person. If you're based in Australia, it's coming from an Australian person. If it's based in Europe, maybe, or Middle East, you're coming from the respective region's person's name, right? And doesn't matter if what team they belong to. That was the thing that they tried, and it worked for them, because now you're building, like, you get attached to that name that you see every week that comes to your inbox, and it's a very familiar name because it's very similar to your region. So you relate to that, and now you build that sort of relationship, even though if it's not a person, even if it's not an actual person, you still
Sure.
feel connected, with that email, right? So that's
Yeah.
one way to build a one-to-many relationship. Again,
Sure.
something I wanted to share on the same
Yeah.
topic because I
No,
read so
that's a
much
good
back.
shout. Yeah, we're definitely a super into, localized, personalized experiences at GetResponse.
Mm,
We, have a super global company base, both in terms of our employees and our customers. And so
mm,
indeed we do that. We've got, super specific communication that goes out to our German audience, right? We've got
nice.
wholly dedicated communications. Of course, it's all, locally translated by Germans, so it's,
Mm,
a shoddy translation work. And from our particular, Germany marketing country manager, and the same for Poland, the same from Italy. We've got,
yeah.
Pedro, our product marketing manager for, our US, our generally English speaking markets, right? So yeah, we definitely, and thankfully GetResponse as a email and marketing automation tool, we can use our own tool. So we're definitely the
Mm.
prime suspects of, dog fooding. So we
Yeah.
definitely we eat what we make, right? And that's how we actually can deploy and create all of these automated communications that are one to many, that help create a consistency and relevancy and timeliness, because we do use
Mm,
amplitude for our product adoption data, but then
nice.
we also have all these product events feeding into our marketing automation account within GetResponse, that based on those adoption or lack of adoption that we see from our product, we can then deploy super relevant email communications that bring folks back to the application, and in all of the different languages and markets as well, which is cool.
Nice, nice. That's really interesting. So again, this is not like Amplitude is not paying me for saying this, but I've used Mixpanel Heap, Amplitude, and like a bunch of others. But I like obviously choose Amplitude over like the all the
Yeah,
others, right?
yeah,
Always.
it's
Such
amazing.
a great tool and such amazing insights and great
Yeah,
dashboards you can build. Like too many features to use, right? Even for
for sure.
like a
No,
scale
it gives
company.
tons of insights. Yeah, tons of
Yeah.
just super, easily scannable, highly visible insights that are super impactful for us. And it's easy for all of us to use it and create it for a new product or for different scenarios we want to, hypothesis you want to test. So that is a super good benefit we do have at GetResponses. We've got a lot of data and we've got a lot of good tools that we can
Mm,
use to analyze it and take good action, which is essential in particular for this customer marketing piece, right? And of course, we have regular surveys that we
mm,
also, do quarterly, just to check in with our free customers, our paid customers, and then our, higher touch customers. That's also another touch point, right? Based on how folks are actually reviewing your product and taking the time to respond to a survey. That's another touch point we have. And that's one
mm.
where we can scale, right? For folks who do rate us a particular, high score, we do then just scale the ask to go to G2. And again, if they
Mm.
criteria, if they've been with us, we only deploy the survey at very specific touch points and times as well. And then that's another
Got it.
opportunity to scale, is also ask them for G2 reviews based on how they rated us.
Makes sense. No, that's a very interesting take as well, and definitely everybody should obviously like implement segmenting as well as a key part of the framework, right? How do you segment your customers? Whether it's by geography, it's by language, it's by
Yeah,
use of product as well, right? Somebody on a small plan versus somebody on a pro plan would have different tiers of communication as well, right? I believe. So yeah, I mean different ways of segmenting, and but segmenting is required for like however you segment.
right. Right.
Very subjective, but however you segment.
Yeah,
But yeah, and one thing I wanted to touch upon before we move on to like the measuring success part, because all this you are doing, and how do you measure if it's successful or not? Very different level, and switching gears a little bit. So I've heard like, and I've seen like customer marketing, and I've heard like two terms for that. One is like customer marketing and the other is customer advocacy. And I have my own thoughts on like, okay, they're the same or they're different, and so on, but like would love to know your take on this. What do you think? Are they same or are they different? And if they are different, like what's the difference between the two?
sure. Yeah. And that's a great point, because indeed, I believe a lot of what we've talked about definitely skews more into, in my opinion, being classified as customer advocacy, right? People who are willing to associate their success publicly with your organization. That's advocacy, right? That's, I advocate for using this tool and you should too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what we're kind of all after. And customer marketing to me is really all the stuff you do before that, right? That's
Mm,
all the things that led you to that opportunity for them being willing to be an advocate for you, and then to potentially theoretically expand their investment in your organization. That's
mm,
inviting them free webinars. That's, giving them your latest research. Don't just gate your latest research so you can, get the email address of some new lead or something.
Mm-hmm.
Take all of the insights that you have from this latest industry research and communicate that to your customers in a way that's super actionable for, what they're doing with your product, right? Like don't just keep these new content pieces and these new research for, new lead and new customer acquisition. How can you communicate, market that to your customers to say, hey, we're continuing to value you. We're continuing to give you additional value on top of, how you're actually physically using this product at this point. Keep, courting them, if we're going to keep using the dating scenario, right? Like keep courting them, letting them know that they, matter to you, that you're happy that they're there. So engage them with marketing materials, asks like you do, your new audience that you're trying to, get into your pipeline. So that's educational webinars, that's, special events, that's, dedicated research and resources, all of that, which is just marketing to them about the overall value that being associated with your organization comes with, in addition to the value that they're getting from actually using your product. Then, in my opinion, that's what actually leads to true advocacy and true expansion in the business. I believe that one team can do that. I don't think you necessarily have to have, different teams execute on that, but that all depends on a myriad of factors that come with internal organization. But theoretically, I would think, one team can and could successfully do those two tactics because they really lead into each other.
No, makes sense. And that's a really good take, right? Like I believe what I think, and on very similar note, right? Like, and I was talking about 1-to-1 versus 1-to-many, right? So I feel like customer marketing is more on the 1-to-many angle, right? Where you're engaging like bunch of people at once, whether it's, even though if it's personalized outreach or if it's like automated outreach. And as soon as you start doing those activities, like not all customers are going to be responsive. That's something like, that's the hard truth.
Yeah.
And that's something you want to know, right? Anybody who is working in, or trying to get into this, or trying to set up their customer marketing / advocacy plan, you like have to understand, like not all customers are going to be responsive and, all hunky dory.
Right.
So, and as you like do that customer marketing, and as you try and build that like one-on-one relationship, and then slowly you're trying to turn away from customer marketing and converting into like the advocacy part, because obviously like you have now engaged with them so much. Now you want them to be your advocate and tell the world publicly, like hey, that you are associated with this company, or maybe even their peers, that hey, why don't you try GetResponse, right, or something like that. Yeah, like that's like a journey, like I feel, right? It starts from marketing but and ends with advocacy, right? So something like that. But yeah, so like, and before we move on to the next like lightning round, like one last thing we wanted to discuss was, how do you measure all of this, right? Like what are the metrics that you generally track at GetResponse when you have to measure whether it's customer marketing or whether it's advocacy, but how do you measure both? And how will you measure like if it was a good framework or it was a bad framework, or what are some of the metrics that you generally track?
So definitely in terms of customer marketing, we really associate with that continuing to, return to and use the product. Generally, are we staying top of mind with this customer? Are we continuing to send them and, communicate valuable information to them that drives them back to the product and then continue to actually use the product in these valuable ways? So that's the first primary, is our core like activation and ongoing usage metrics that we have for people actually continuing, over the month-over-month basis that we're monitoring, keep using, right? They are using GetResponse. We're top of mind. We send them communications and we see an uptick in the, ways in which they're continuing to use the product. That's the first, right? With like, does it just get them back? Are they using the tool? Are they regular consumers of this? And then in terms of the advocacy, right, it's just, a lot of it is if it's the scaled reviews, right? Are we continuing to see people actually follow through with this? Are we actually seeing an increase after we, deploy these surveys? Do we actually see an uptick in that? Are we actually seeing positive response rates in our interview requests? Again, you have to be pretty realistic in terms of your expectations for how many customers are willing to get on a call with you. So, I mean, roughly, I would say 10% it is a relatively decent response rate that we're able to see whenever we deploy our kind of engagement asks to a particular segment of customers. People are busy, they don't have time. And so 10% roughly is kind of our benchmark for, the success ratio that we have in actually connecting with a group of our customer base. And that's on the larger scale, right? When we have on the PLG side, in terms of that engagement. And on the other side, on the kind of higher touch, it's much smaller scale, much fewer customers. And so we spend a lot more time actually investing in the strategy for the ask, right? So like if we have a group of 4 customers who are good fits for this, I hope one of them will respond positively. But you honestly never know in the B2B world, to be honest. If it's not going to be the right time, you'll probably get pushed off next month. Delay is the most common, I would say. It's not going to be a lack of response, but it's going to be not right now. And then the true success is it referenced during the sales process of other future deals? I mean, that's how was like, all of the work you did from engaging and your customers getting value through marketing, turning into an advocate willing to do a story with you. Can sales or other prospects actually point to hearing about the success of that story being the reason why they decided to try your tool or sign with you? I mean, that's the whole point, right? That's why we want advocates, is to help us get more happy customers. And so definitely it's being very close touch with your sales team to coach them on how to utilize these success stories, how to deploy them and when. And then can they or the customer, maybe you should do closed-won interviews to talk with your customers and ask, why did you decide to use GetResponse? Why'd you decide to give us a try? You hit the nail on the head if they say, well, I saw this cool webinar you did with this similar customer to me, or whatever it is, then it was a success.
Yeah. No, as you said correctly, right? Like with advocates, it's more of a strategic, like when you work on the high level, on a complex deals where you want to expand as well, and you obviously want to, keep them renewing your product, but also have how much revenue you are expanding into this particular account. It's more of a strategic positioning as opposed to like, hey, we'll put powered by GetResponse in your email and blah blah blah, so on, right? That's very marketing focused, but this is like more on a strategic level on having those customers referenceable at all times is something like the biggest task that they could have, right? And that's who your advocates will be. So yeah, it's a great way to measure as well. Cool. So moving on to the lightning round. So I've already asked you like too many questions, but like I'm gonna ask you like 3 questions which are not related to the topic, and you have to answer, since it is lightning round. So you have to answer it whatever is on your head. Yeah. So yeah, first one. So what's the one fundamental change that you're making in your job in 2023?
Oh, that's a really cool question. In 2023, we're halfway through 2023, I would say. So I have, the benefit of the first half behind me, really, I would say. It continues to be something I think I say a lot of years, but I really mean it this time, is that done is better than perfect, I would say. And that's what I'm really trying to coach as a, recovering perfectionist. Nice. That's what I'm trying to coach myself and my team also. Done is better than perfect. Let's ship, let's go out, let's move fast, let's learn, let's make mistakes, and let's learn from them. So yeah.
Always be launching, as you said.
Always be launching. Yeah, exactly.
That is correct. So on to the second one. What is the one thing that has helped you shorten your learning curve?
Making mistakes, I would say. You never learn as good as when you have messed up and you are responsible for fixing it. I have made every huge jump in my internal, confidence in myself. And also in my big learning jumps is when I've actually made a mistake and it was my responsibility. So that's not amazing. Yeah. It sucks, but that's truly the only way I have made the bounds and leaps that I've had to make. Was probably the mistake wasn't even as huge as it seemed externally, but internally for me, it was like something happened, and it did. Yeah. So yeah.
That generally happens like every time, like since we're talking about emails and like GetResponse,
right.
Share about like what, if you're I don't think anybody's a true marketer if they haven't, messed up on sending emails, right? Like if you are a true marketer, you have messed up at least once in your lifetime on sending emails, whether you are selected the wrong list, you have forgot to remove, like add an exclusion list, or you have
Yeah.
segmented the wrong
That's
audience
right. You'll
once.
never forget that again. You'll never do it again.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, that it happened with me as well, and not once, but like different ways and different times. And
that's
but
right.
I've not repeated the same mistake twice. Like
That's
I've not
right.
made the wrong segmentation twice, but it happened once. And
Right.
once I forgot to send an email itself, or obviously like time zone is such a big curse of while sending emails. Like we never know it's the right time zone or not. So yeah,
That's
like different types of mistake. But yeah, that's a very like good thing. And on to the last one, right? Like, what do you know about your work now that you wish you would have known when you first started?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question. And kind of similar that I am probably my, biggest critic. No one is
Hmm.
thinking as negatively about the work that you're doing as you are. So just go higher. It's kind of all in the similar theme, right? Just do it, launch it, pitch it, take the
Yeah.
risk, self out there. You're your harshest critic.
Hmm.
So get it past yourself and get it out there. Don't hold things so close to your chest. And so I
Hmm.
think I probably could have accelerated much of my career and much of kind of what I was able to do if I had just known earlier. Nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's just guessing and,
Yeah.
trying their hand, but some folks are just a little bit more brave. So I would definitely just say be brave, put yourself out there, and I think you'll be
Yeah.
greatly.
Take those chances for sure. I
That's
mean,
right.
that's what I've always done when with respect to everything, like not
Yeah.
just great. Thanks a lot, Abby, for sharing all the amazing insights on customer marketing. And I'm sure it's a very power packed episode and very practical, and everybody can have like a lot of takeaways from this. So yeah, I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. It's a great conversation. Thanks for having me.